We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you to our Split Zone Duo listeners. I'm Alex Kirshner, along with Richard Johnson. It's the College Football Playoff Semifinals, and before that, the FCS Championship game reaction show. You watched that game last night, Richard. It was.
I certainly did. I also watched. I have not gotten your on-camera reaction for this. I also watched the Sunday Night Football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. My friend, welcome to the postseason. The water's fine. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been obviously clinched the postseason for multiple weeks now. I will be in Jacksonville on Sunday, obviously, for the big one against the Bills. How are we feeling over there in the LA wing of the Steelers fandom?
More people have reached out to me about that Steelers game than do when a family member dies or when I got married. I've been hearing from all corners of the globe about this one. It was a fun Sunday night with all that. There's a certain feeling about a field goal attempt that is not to take a game to overtime, not to change a tie game or to try to tie a game, but a 1 to 2 point game where the field goal means you win or you lose, and then a miss, which doesn't happen. You don't get that too much. And so to get it in the last game of the season was pretty electric. There was yelling in my home.
Good. I'm glad you get some success. Enjoy the Texans defense. I would like for you to dispatch the Texans defense if you don't mind. If there's one team in the AFC bracket that I am legitimately petrified about, it is the Houston Texans. Texans are absolute ass kickers.
Something's got to give because the Steelers have not lost a home Monday Night Football game in my lifetime. I believe they've won 23. What? I believe the Steelers have. I mean it. Go look this up, Splits and Duo listeners, because I know you came to the show for an NFL pod.
We are.
The Steelers have won, I believe it's 23 home games in a row on Monday nights. A stretch that goes back to like the early 1990s, 1991, before I was alive. So something has to give here.
I'll tell you who didn't lose a Monday Night Football game this week. Montana State, despite the fact that, doggone it, they tried. Let me tell you, in the game last night, Montana State takes down Illinois State in the FCS National Championship game. It was in Nashville, in Vanderbilt Stadium. It looked like an absolute scene, to be honest with you. I imagine Broadway was something special on Monday night after that game was over. A fun one, not necessarily a good one, but a fun one and an entertaining one. And congratulations to Montana State's Bobcats. Get the job done.
So this was by a pretty wide margin the messiest championship game that I've ever laid eyes upon. I believe the final count wound up being 9 false starts for the winners, Montana State. And to say that there were 9 plays that they couldn't even get off right would actually be an undersell, because they also lost an opportunity to win the game at the end of regulation on a miscommunication on the snap count or something, where the shotgun snap went directly past the quarterback, Justin Lamson, and
for
took
like
them
the
out of field range.
Time that, right? How many times did
they had a number of snap problems? Let's put the number conservatively at like 12 plays that between false starts and snaps, they couldn't get off right. At the end of this game, especially, like in the second half, Montana State's defenders all just seem to forget how to tackle. There's this wide receiver for Illinois State, Dylan Lord, who wears number 4, who was sick in this game in the open field, was untackleable, just an incredible force. The quarterback for Illinois State, Tommy Rittenhouse, who's sort of a good, bad quarterback usually, which is my favorite kind in college football. Some would just call that fun, was incredible in this game. He threw 4 touchdowns, no picks. Much different than the North Dakota State upset where he threw 5 picks, but they won anyway. And so you're wondering, how does Illinois State not win this game, given the 10-plus failed snaps, failed getting plays off that Montana State had, and given all those stats and numbers from the Illinois State players? And it's because Illinois State's game and management, Richard, left a thing or 3 to be desired. In particular, with a minute left, They are facing a 4th and 1 at the 21-yard line.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't mind that they kicked it. I know you do.
That's because you're not up on the Illinois State kicker situation.
No, I am. Oh, I was made immediately aware last night when they said his career long is 35 and he's possibly good from 40. That's when I became extremely abreast of the Illinois State kicking situation. But to be honest with you, it's not the kicker's fault. There was you talk about trouble with the snap. There was a bad snap from the long snapper on the field goal there. And I'm not even sure it mattered because a Montana State defender was coming off the edge so scot-free to block that kick. He almost overran it or almost overdove it, I should say, because the timing was off because of the snap.
I'd never seen someone so unblocked in a situation like that.
I'm not sure he was touched. Legitimately not sure.
It's a weird thing for the player trying to block the kick too, to beat it by that much.
Exactly.
Right. Like I wonder, almost like, is it like you just try to tackle the snapper, but you can't do that. You have to actually block the kick for it to be a change of, I guess on 4th down, it doesn't matter. But this would have been a 38-yard kick. He probably wasn't going to make it, even if the operation was clean.
Which it wasn't.
And it wasn't. This is also their backup kicker who took the job during the playoffs. The starter
he was a transfer in from I can't remember what it was. A
transfer in from the bench after the starter was 10 of 17 on field goals over the course of the season. And anyway, so they do that, and then this game, so they lose the opportunity to bleed the clock. They basically should lose the game probably in regulation.
Well, and it almost got block sixed, to be honest with you. It could have very well been block sixth, but they tackle him. And then, as you said, Montana State then takes over, tries to get themselves into field goal range, pretty much gets to the edge of it, has their own snap issues. And then we go to overtime. In overtime, we got a 4th down, or excuse me, was it 4th down or was it on the face mask?
The winning touchdown for Montana State comes on a 4th and 10 where Illinois State brings a full house blitz.
Well, no, not that. I'm talking about the face mask that happened in the top of the first overtime, which gets declined because it's in overtime. You made this point to me last night when we were talking
on the blocked extra point.
Thank you. Yes, because also, again, elsewhere in kicking situations in the FCS National Championship game. Sorry, we're trying to get our kicking snaffus in order here, ducks in a row. Yes, there's a face mask on the blocked extra point in
because
the top
they had the field goal operation problem a second time. By the way,
yes, thank you. And I then learned that a face mask on a try in the top of an overtime, we just forget about it, and it doesn't exist apparently.
Yeah, I didn't know this either. I gathered that if you commit a personal foul on a failed PAT try in overtime where there's no kickoff to be done, that's just one of those no jurisdiction lawless zones like they have just across the Wyoming state line.
Or maritime law, what is it? It's maritime law, right?
Yeah, I mean, it did leave me curious, like what brand of personal foul would there be a consequence for if you committed it on that play? Or can you just do anything? It was a soft spot in the rules about which I had been woefully unaware.
Yeah.
But I think if you're Illinois State and you're their head coach, Brock's back, kicking the PAT in overtime was also a little sus. Easy to say now, but this was not a field goal team that was looking very prepared to make a kick of any distance. It could have been a 2-yard field goal, and you're not making it if you can't get it off. And so that gets blocked. And then in the back half of the overtime, Illinois State defense, with some help from a Montana State false start, is standing up, is playing ball. And then on 3rd and 10 in the game, they bring everybody. They brought like 7. It was a lot, and they give it up.
It was hitting on 17 at the blackjack table, basically, because like the entire evening, Illinois State was getting home on Montana State with different blitzes, different pressure packages. They were getting the job done. It's 4th and 10 for the national championship game, and they brought everything but the kitchen sink. Hell, they probably brought the kitchen sink too on that blitz. And honestly, a lot of credit for Montana State's quarterback for looking in the teeth of that and yeeting that ball up there for
Justin
the national
Lamson.
championship.
Yeah, Lamson is a serious guy.
He was originally
as is Taco
accused-
Dowler, the wide receiver, who, as Roger Sherman has pointed out, nicknamed himself Taco when he was young, drove past Taco Bell and thought, I'll call myself Taco now.
Lamson was originally at Cuse and then at Stanford and then ended up at Montana State, third school transfer or third school guy, I should say. Looks into the teeth of that blitz, throws it up there and scores. Look, personally,
they brought 7, by the way. I'm looking at it right now. They brought 7.
Now, I understand that perhaps I am asking for a level of defensive prowess that was not capable, but you would have loved to have been able to run some sort of sim pressure in that situation where you drop players out and you bluff it and you flood the zone. Again, 4th and 10. Like, I understand you're trying to force the ball out, which is the point there. And I understand you've gotten home pretty much all night, but it's a rough one. But congratulations to Montana State. They get the touchdown there. They then do not have their own kicking snafu, and they kick the extra point and walk it off in Vanderbilt Stadium to win the national championship.
It did look like a big win to put this game, 1, at the Vanderbilt Stadium, which was mostly full, and 2, on Monday night. It just seemed like a big deal. It felt right. It felt like a championship game. It wasn't, and also, not that this is your problem as a fan, but it wasn't up against the weekend of sports. It had a lot of spotlight. It's a good call, I think, by the NCAA to put that game there, because on weekends, the FCS Championship game oftentimes gets lost. This was cool. Chris Vanini, by the way, friend of the show, writer at The Athletic, makes a very good point. We probably should stop calling them FBS and FCS now. That FBS also has a championship now.
Yeah, but
the designations don't make sense anymore. Go back to 1A and 1A and 1AA. They even had cool logos.
There's 40 bowl games. You know why it's called FBS and FCS. I think the FBS FCS team is actually really fine. Like, it's very easy to explain. One has the chance to play in the bowl games, and gorge yourself on over Christmas. The other one doesn't, absent the Celebration Bowl. So, like, come on.
I disagree, because 1A and 1AA just sounds cooler, and I'm all about late 90s, early 2000s chic in that way. Sure. So I like that old branding that's gone. But anyway, yes, congrats to Montana State. Gets to break up the Dakota State duopoly and was the best team in FCS this year, given the way the chips fell. I mean, this was the best team. They beat Montana twice. Illinois State had been on this incredible magic carpet ride, first team to win 4 road games in the playoffs. Really felt during the second half of this game like they had a divine mandate to win it all, and Montana State ultimately just said no.
This ends up being a bad process, good result national championship for FCS.
Indeed. Also, this happened on Sunday night. This was the Division III national title game at the Stag Bowl. I want to congratulate Wisconsin River Falls with a pretty major upset over a dynasty program, North Central, that's in Illinois, to win the Stag Bowl. It was 24-14. The quarterback for River Falls, Caleb Blaha, broke Joe Burrow's record for individual yards in a single season across every division of NCAA football. North Central was in its 6th title game in a row, had won 3 of them previously. I don't think you could even get a spread on a Division III football game, actually, in most places. But I think the consensus was double-digit underdog-ish was about fair coming into this game. And the Falcons of Wisconsin River Falls go out and do it. So congratulations. Fun weekend of the national championship games here. And I do have a roadshow correspondent, our Nokian Tires road trip of the week, for a bit more from the scene in Nashville.
Nokian Tires road trip of the week coming to you from the logo midfield as they hoist the trophy for the FCS National Championship. Montana State 35-34, and the most brilliant display of stupidity you'll ever see, and the most beautiful as well. We had a blocked extra point. We had a blocked field goal. We had 15 penalties by the winning team. More false starts than touchdowns, and we had 9 touchdowns. Spectacular moment. Drove through all my Nokian tires, of course. Fireworks going off. So glad I bought the last-minute ticket. Let this be a reminder to all you fellow sickos out there in the SCD community. If you have a chance to go to a game, FBS, FCS, Division III, NAIA, doesn't matter. You go. You buy the ticket. So glad I bought the ticket. Back to you guys.
Alex, Thursday night begins the college football playoff, or a college football playoff, if you want to term it as such. Miami and Ole Miss get it done in the Fiesta Bowl. That is the first one. I think there is, of all both these two games, Friday the Peach Bowl is Oregon and Indiana, obviously. I think the most intriguing personnel matchup is the combination of Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor against, honestly, not just Ole Miss's tackles, but specifically Trinidad Chambliss, because it's going to be on those two guys to get that guy on the ground when he gets flushed from the pocket. Georgia, multiple times in the second half, to Georgia's credit in the Sugar Bowl, they flushed Trinidad Chambliss.
Like they're running around like Pac-Man, 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yes. They flushed him from the pocket. They were able to get him off his spot. The problem was they didn't have good enough contain, and he was able to, as you espouse, run around and do some things. And that was obviously their problem. So while I do think I think Miami's defensive line is probably the best position group in the entire college football playoff. Now that I do that off the top of my head, or remaining in the college football playoff, now that I do that off the top of my head, I think Miami's defensive line might be the best single position unit of these 4 teams. But they're going to have to contend with the fact that you've got to rush with discipline. So you may have a situation where Bain and Mesidor don't have any sacks, don't have any TFLs, don't have any counting stats. But at the end of the day, they have done the job, because Trinidad Chambliss does not shred them with second order scramble drill plays as he is wont to do. Look, it's an Ole Miss offense passing wise, a lot of crossing routes, a lot of overs, a lot of cross country, a lot of post, a lot of stuff that takes a decently long time to develop and is crossing from one side of the field to the other. And Chambliss is just able to hit those time and time again, primarily because he's able to buy himself a lot of time. I think his prop from an over-under standpoint, passing-wise, like 250. So the boys in the desert actually aren't expecting him to go crazy in this game. So we will see how that ends up.
It's going to be... I'm watching the same matchup that you're watching. And in the interest of not just being reductive every week and just saying, oh, look at the edge rushers on Miami.
Well, they're great players.
No, they are. And I think it's
winning time, baby.
I think it's the defining matchup of this game. Ole Miss has a left tackle, Diego Pounds, who's going to be busy in this game, right? Like, this is going to be his moment to shine. I think from the way that Miami played against A&M and Ohio State, I don't think that Bain and Mesidor just play one side the whole game. I think those guys kind of move around. So Diego Pounds, he wears 61. Probably going to see both of those fellas over the course of this game. And he's your man to watch for Ole Miss. He wears number 61. Very athletic tackle, good puller, fun player to watch play the position. And this is the test of his life in this game. You know, this is just going to be absolute showtime for him. And really, I think for the rest of the Ole Miss offensive line, I think it's impressive that Ole Miss played Georgia for 120 minutes this year, about 60 of those on offense, and did not give up a sack to the Georgia Bulldogs in 2 showings. It's not, as you say, it's not because they didn't get back there ever. But
no, it is not.
In concert with Trinidad Chambliss, they've been pretty good about avoiding the big negative plays. And their best chance in this game, obviously, is to keep that one going.
And it's because, Alex, I do think the weak link in this game is Ole Miss's offensive line. Like specifically because I think the weak link of position groups, at least specifically as far as this one goes, is the front that Ole Miss has. So how much is Kewan Lacey going to be able to get the job done in this game and be able to kind of give them a kind of a second punch on offense if the passing game is not going? That's the thing we're going to have to find out. That's the thing we're going to have to look for in a game that should be really good. On offense for Miami, frankly, I do think one of the things that I think goes under the radar with Malachi Toney, that it's one of the things that I noticed in the Ohio State game. It's one of the things that I think you should pay attention to as far as being a complete player. So Miami runs a ton of screens, right? We know that. It's a air raid style passing game, which means screens are a way they skin the cat. They did it multiple times on whenever that was, New Year's Eve, whenever. Days all bleed together. Toney is a surprisingly good blocker too. And for a slot heavy receiver, B freshman who, as you know, should be in high school, as you will hear time and time again on the broadcast Thursday night, that's just impressive. That's unselfish, especially for a player that is the sun, moon, and stars, frankly, of that offense, at least that passing game. It is impressive for him to be able to do that, for him to be able to show that. And it's one of the reasons why those myriad screens are able to work, because of the perimeter blocking that Miami has. So gonna come up in this game. Gonna come up because I do think if you're Ole Miss's secondary, you're going to be pouncing on that. You're going to be expecting that.
Yeah, you'd probably be wise to be. Do you think Miami has the gear to do anything in the downfield passing game? Because in the first 2 weeks of the playoff, that has been literally zero. I believe they have one 20-yard completion in the first two playoff games, and it was a ball that was thrown like 3 or 4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. It was a catch and run, I think, for a first down on like a 3rd and 20. But they just haven't had the downfield passing dimension. They've tried a handful to all of their receivers, basically, and they have not hit.
I think Miami, again, runs the piss out of the ball in this game. I think you try to run. I think you try to run over for a couple of reasons. Because I think you can for Miami. I think you can run over Ole Miss in a way that, frankly, it was impressive that Georgia, or that Ole Miss did not allow Georgia to on New Year's night. But I do think that if you're Miami, you're trying to shorten this game. You're trying to keep Ole Miss's offense off the field. You are, at some points in time, if you can get quick stops, really run. Again, it's not like Ole Miss's offense was gangbusters in the first half of that game. If you have a kicker having an out-of-body experience, also this game, otherwise indoors, by the way, of note, as far as kickers with out-of-body experiences, he had an out-of-body experience in the Superdome. He might have one in State Farm Stadium in this game as well, because elements are controlled. So, I think if you're Miami, you say, we're going to try to control this game. We're going to try to be physical. We're going to try to maul you. We're going to try to control the tempo and the pace as best we can. And we're going to try to limit possessions. And you, Ole Miss, are going to have to score 7s when you touch the ball.
I'm glad you brought up the kicker for Ole Miss.
That was nuts.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm standing there watching this guy kick from the midfield logo with not NFL K balls. And those 2 field goals were good from 65.
It is a possibly huge advantage in this game for Ole Miss. Miami's kicker, Carter Davis, is fine, but just fine. Not really a value add statistically is a fair way to put it in terms of the kicks that he's made from certain distances. If you go by kicker expected points added, Ole Miss, I think, is the second best team in the country, actually, behind Georgia, in that Miami is right around even par, to use a golf term. So if it comes down to it, in that indoor stadium, on that pretty grass that they wheel inside after
It ain't
growing
so
it.
pretty. It ain't so pretty when you're standing on it sometimes. I don't know the current nature of that grass, but as someone who has stood on that grass for a college football playoff game before in January, I can tell you some spots can be painted, so to speak, in there. And they actually had a problem with that with the Super Bowl that was, I believe it was Chiefs Eagles in here a couple years ago. There was some issues with the turf as well. So watch that as far as footing is concerned. It has been a thing. Ask Michigan and TCU.
Yeah. Actually, while we're on kickers, quickly jumping ahead to the next game, I think if we're trying to find, and at this point we are trying to find weaknesses in these teams because they're all so good, Indiana has no real weak links, but their kicker is probably the closest thing. Their field goal kicker. I think they use a kickoff specialist. That is a thing to watch if Indiana winds up playing a close game in the other semifinal. It's an issue for them. Oregon's got a really good kicker with Atticus Sappington. Miami's is okay. Indiana's not very good. I expect both of these games to be very, very close. And so, as we saw in the National Football League the other day and in the FCS Championship game on Monday night, kicking operations, they can make every bit of difference in who winds up going and playing for the national championship.
Alex, I just don't. I think this is an entirely pace dependent outcome. I think if this game is in the low 20s, Miami wins. I think if this game is in the upper 30s, Ole Miss wins. And I don't think I'm splitting atoms with that analysis. I just think that it's just who is going to win the style fight of the game. And I think that determines who will win the game.
Which style do you think it will be? What's your pick?
Miami. I think we're Miami in the national championship game. It's kind of wild to think about it when you take into account the 25 years of context we have over the recent history of the Miami football program. But I do think Miami gets a job done here and goes to the national championship game.
I'm going to take Ole Miss. I think if one of these offenses goes boom, it's very likely that it's Ole Miss's. And so that tilts it slightly in Ole Miss's direction for me. Looks like Ole Miss is getting about 3.5 for a sense of what our friends in the desert are thinking. That's interesting to me. I think I would have guessed that this would have been a point or two tighter, actually. But
really?
Yeah, that's a reasonable difference of opinion. I think Ole Miss might be being slightly penalized by bettors for the coaching situation, just slightly. It's hard to quantify that.
I
Maybe
don't know.
At a half point adjustment, that whole deal.
At this point in time, I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter because it's obviously still there in the background, but you really have to give Pete Golding and Ole Miss's administration a ton of credit for how they've handled this in the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's been pretty impressive since the dust kind of settled on the decision. I know it's not exactly the cleanest operation from a staffing standpoint, but again, you have to give credit where it's due to all involved for handling this pretty well. Now, we'll say this is a situation where Ole Miss, and this is where I think it's interesting, Ole Miss has played 2 rematch games. This is not a rematch game. It's important because I do think that there is an ease of game planning that I don't want to say Ole Miss's staff has been let off easy, but I do think it's easier to game plan for a team twice when you're in a spot like this with everything going on that these Ole Miss / LSU coaches have going on versus a Miami situation like they have here where you've got a team that you haven't played yet. How many common opponents do they even have? They might not have any, right?
There might be none. Yeah.
Florida? Yeah, I think it's Florida. Is probably the only. Yeah, Florida's the only common opponents these two teams have.
Not a ton of shared reference points. I'm glad you brought up the way that Golding has handled this, by the way, for Ole Miss. I think it's actually been kind of masterful on his part and even Keith Carter's part, the AD. They made a gamble with Lane in letting him take that down to the Egg Bowl. And they got burned. And if you wanted to argue a couple weeks ago that was a failure of leadership to not see it coming, being in the building with him, then okay, like you could argue that. That's fair. But the way they elevated the right guy seemingly, at least for this run. And
At least for now. We'll deal
at
with
least for now,
we'll
we'll deal with the
next
future
year
when we
with
get to the future. And the way that Golding has played it with his assistants, right after the Sugar Bowl, a story that I believe came from the Ole Miss side, based on who was interviewed in it. Really good story by Ross Dellinger in Yahoo Sports, very good sports writer. Indicated, basically Ole Miss sort of putting these assistants on a little bit of blast, but leaving the ball sort of in Lane Kiffin's court to be the villain if he's going to yank them away from them for the rest of the playoff. Golding even said, it's not up to me because these guys aren't employed by me. And making Lane be the really bad guy in public if he was going to pull him away. And it seemed like they might be doing that with Kevin Smith, the running backs coach, but then he returned for this game. But he might still not be able to get Kwan Lacey over to Baton Rouge.
No,
and
Lacey's
by the way,
Lacey's
Ole Miss has done, by the way, they did a deal. It's contingent on the eligibility madness continuing, but they've done a deal with Trinidad Chambliss, which is designed to put a dollar amount on the damages if the NCAA doesn't let him play next year. So they kept Trinidad Chambliss, or at least kept him away from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And they're doing all this while they're running a playoff.
Chambliss is staying and Lacey is staying. If now Chambliss has to get the eligibility, but yes, they're both staying, which is really impressive. You have to give a lot of credit to Ole Miss's apparatus for being able to get that done from an administrative standpoint, rev share, NIL standpoint as well. Credit to them.
But as far as the actual players on the team, I'm guessing that the coaches pulling double duty stuff at this point probably feels like a little bigger deal to us not in the building than it does to them in the building. They're playing football at this point. I mean, I'm not saying you don't need to be coached in the course of the playoff, but someone calls the plays, the plays. Right?
Well, look,
this could be this could be an I never played the game thing. It really could be.
Well, I'm not gonna go that far, but it's not like game management concerns aren't popping up. There was a significant game management concern at the end of the first half of the Sugar Bowl that cost Ole Miss 3
and the
points.
end of the second half, but that one didn't hurt him.
So it's not nothing. I don't want to say it's nothing, but I do think there's some sense of normalcy relatively in that this is the third game planning cycle, I should say, that you've done it this way with all these distractions. Now, one thing you won't have is 2 days before the game, half of your coaching staff driving up to Baton Rouge after you do media day, which is what happened last week. So you're not going to have that, but yeah, you're going to have some semblance of normalcy for the proceedings here.
Going to be a good one. Looking forward to it. Also looking forward perhaps to cracking open a delicious Dad Water. Dad Water is a tequila water with 4 all-natural ingredients. There's no sugar, no carbonation, no carbs, no gluten either. It's got a really enjoyable taste. I would imagine that there will be plenty of it around the stadium when people are going to enjoy this game at the Fiesta Bowl. Arizona really is beautiful this time of year. Dad Water is beautiful any time of year. Thank you so much to Dad Water, presenting sponsors of the Sunday Hurry Up, which, by the way, will be coming to you after these playoff games. We're actually going to record that in the same place this week. We're having company meetings. We never record podcasts from the same room. Because
to the point that we're actually not sure functionally how to do it to make it sound right. So Alex is going to have to find a table mic sometime this week.
Yeah, we have literally never done it. We tried it once with Godfrey in a house like 3 years ago, and we all wound up going to separate bedrooms to record because the mics that we have are not designed to be operated in the same room. Anyway, our producer, Anthony Vito, might have to work some magic on how this one sounds, but we will be coming to you with a hurry up on probably late Friday, I guess possibly early Saturday, but late Friday after the Peach Bowl semifinal. Speaking of, Richard, Oregon and Indiana.
Hard to beat a team twice. Hard to beat a team twice. By the way, I know that that's kind of been a bit for me this offseason, but it actually is hard to beat a team twice. Shout out to the Tulsa World, which did the research. The team that wins the first game is basically 500 in the rematch as far across conference championship games, playoff games, bowl games, and the scant times that it's actually happened in a regular season. Washington State, Oregon State, Liberty, New Mexico State, etc. Over the course of college football history since World War II. So yes, it is hard to beat a team twice. Bit aside. However, consider how that happened last time when Indiana won that game. Indiana pretty well bullied Oregon in their own house.
I have one bone to pick with that, but go ahead.
Sure. But, I should say and, not even but, and, like, Fernando Mendoza threw a pick 6 in that game. Like, I don't want to say it arguably could have been worse. I think by the math of the game, it could arguably be worse. But, like, I don't leave that game thinking that was smoke and mirrors. Like, when I go back and watch that, like, Indiana pretty well pushed them around. Now, saying that, I do think that the game is the thing that I'm watching, I guess, similar to the Thursday night game, is what's going to happen on the interior of the defensive line, because Bear Alexander and Amari Washington have been throwing gas so far this season, especially the back half of it for Oregon. How does the interior hang on against Roman Hemby and the good Indiana offensive line? Flip side that, I'm a little concerned about Oregon's offensive line against what Indiana is going to bring to the table, specifically in what they do post-snap. It's just really hard to deal with how Indiana plays up front on defense.
It is. Last time that these teams played, though, it's funny that Indiana won this game by 10. And yeah, it didn't feel like smoke and mirrors to you. In a way, it didn't to me either, because they won by 10 despite a pick 6 and despite, people forget this. I'm wondering if you're forgetting this. Indiana couldn't really run the ball in that game either against Amari Washington, Bear Alexander, that Oregon defensive front.
Yeah, Surratt went nuts.
Surratt went nuts, which is another thing I want to talk about. But Indiana ran for sack adjusted about 3.3 per carry. It's actually one of Oregon's best rushing performance defensive games of the year. So, the line of scrimmage thing that Indiana has done so well in most of its games, and that they just used to dismiss Alabama from the season, it might not be the same advantage this time around. And, you can scheme certain things when you see a team for a second time, but it's hard to scheme just a straightforward line of scrimmage advantage. It'll be very interesting to see what Pat Coogan and the boys for Indiana up front, Rose Bowl offensive MVP, by the way, which I thought was cool, have for Washington and Alexander, those two really serious Oregon defensive tackles who actually won the matchup the last time, just lost the war.
One other point here, I think that as far as I'm interested to see how the screen game works for Oregon in this one, if they continue to try to go to the well with that one. Because you have to consider, part of the reason why screens work, frankly, is because screens are relatively, within the feel of the game, a surprise in how they come. Like, screens get screwed up for a couple. Well, first of all, obviously, screens get screwed up by perimeter block defeating and tackling, which I do trust Indiana's defensive secondary to be able to do. But they also can be screwed up when defensive linemen feel things out. And I do wonder if Indiana, because of how much post-snap movement Indiana actually has, I do wonder if that counters the screen game, because you got guys that are going to be dropping out anyway, right? Dropping out potentially into screen passing games anyway in this game, just because of what Indiana does post snap. It's just impressive.
Yeah. You mentioned last game, Surratt went crazy. Elijah Surratt for Indiana. He got hurt a couple weeks after that. That was sort of the peak of his season. He's Indiana's best receiver, I think. The Omar Cooper and Charlie Becker are also really good. They just got a good group of them. He has not really been back since he's been back. He came back for Purdue Thanksgiving weekend, getting 4 targets per week since he's come back. He has scored some touchdowns, but I'd be very interested because he really broke the game last time for Oregon. Just worked people over in a lot of different plays. There was some screen action where they couldn't tackle him. He caught what went down as the winning touchdown against Ife Obedegwu on a play that was kind of reminded me of what Antonio Brown used to do with the Steelers, where he did that pass interference that they can't call because you made it so pretty. Like, you basically push off them with your entire body in a way that just doesn't get flagged, and he scored a touchdown. They couldn't really guard him. They tried like 4 or 5 different DBs on him, couldn't guard him. And that was the offensive difference maker for Indiana. I don't know how healthy Surratt is right now.
Shoot it up and play, brother.
Well, he's definitely playing.
Look, man,
he's definitely playing. But
we got 60 minutes for a season here.
The thing that Indiana broke the game with last time on offense, the player that they broke the game with last time on offense, just has kind of been easing his way back in from an injury that was a week or two after that. He missed a few games, came back at the end of the year. He wears 13 for Indiana. You know him by this point. He's a great player, but where will the lion's share of the offense be coming from for the Hoosiers this time? Because he was the answer last time, and he hasn't really been trending that way.
You're going to have to pick between your two beautiful boys here. Who do you think's a better tight end in this game?
Do you mean of the... Well, it's funny because Indiana has a good tight end, but Oregon has 2. No, but Oregon has 2. Oregon's other guy, Jamari Johnson,
what I
had
mean,
the biggest game
for
last week.
God's sakes.
I'm a Kenyon.
You know what I mean.
I'm a Kenyon Sadiq guy. And also, when you're talking about tight ends, I think you're doing that thing again, just to be clear, because I think you've done this on the show like 3 times this year. Are you referring to Charlie Becker as a tight end?
Yes,
so he's a wide receiver. I understand that he's white, Richard, but he's a wide receiver. We're not all the same. Are we all the same to you?
Yeah, all look alike.
It took me a minute to process what you were even asking me, but I realized it as soon as I thought about it for a second. No, I mean, they play different positions.
Yeah, they all look alike.
Oregon's best receiver in the other game.
It's not like Charlie Becker doesn't block, to be clear, by the way.
But he's too fast to be a tight end. He's a go ball guy. He's running posts. He's not a tight end. He's just smiling. He's just smiling at me, folks. It's funny though that we're talking about pass catchers still. Oregon's wide receiver depth is kind of this thing that I've just been hobby horsing all season. And
hammering that one, man.
I'm still doing it though. Their wideouts caught 11 passes for 92 yards against Texas Tech. They were fine because Texas Tech couldn't score, and their number 2 tight end Johnson chipped in with his biggest game of the year, 4 catches for 66. But if you don't think that Oregon is going to have great success running the ball in Indiana, which they definitely didn't against Texas Tech, then it's kind of the same question I just had about Indiana, which is who's going to make the plays. They have very few healthy wide receivers on this team. It doesn't seem like the Evan Stewart thing is going to happen. And I think they have 5 receivers that are healthy and on scholarship, and only 4-ish of them actually are really involved in the action, and none of them are really like a number 1, whereas Indiana arguably has 3 number 1 receivers. And Indiana's secondary is really good. D'Angelo Pons, maybe the best corner in the Big Ten this year. All Big Ten safety, Lewis Moore. I think you can ask the question reasonably about if the downfield offense is going to be there for either team, but especially Oregon, which just doesn't have that many people because injuries are real.
First of all, Brandon Finney erasure. The other thing is I do think that, look, if the downfield game's not there for either team, I think Indiana is more built to win that game. It's not like Oregon's offensive line covered itself in glory against Texas Tech. Now, Indiana's going to attack.
And Indiana sacked him a lot, by the way, the first meeting. I think 6 times they got Dante Moore.
He was bad in that game.
Yeah.
He was bad in that game. Now, again, Indiana's going to attack them a different way. Indiana, again, great pass rushing, and great getting after the quarterback and good up front on defense, but just different. Like, they don't have a Lee Hunter. They don't have a David Bailey. That's not how they get the job done. So they're going to go about things a different way. It doesn't mean they can't get to him. Again, as you said, got to him the first time. But how they do it is just going to be fascinating in this game. It
will be. Oregon's a very well coached outfit, but if you just think this is a second matchup scheme fest, Indiana's the best coached team in college football. So
yes. They sacked him 6 times the first one.
8 TFLs, 6 sacks, 8 TFLs. Which I believe are additive, right? I believe that's 8 total TFLs, of which 6 are sacks. Sometimes different stat keepers get a little squirrely about that in a way that is kind of the bane of my existence, actually. There really shouldn't be this inconsistency, but I don't believe it was 14 tackles total behind the loss. That would be out of step with my memory of that game. It's about ethics in college football stat keeping. That's very important to us here.
Of course.
Richard, I know who's going to be watching this game in person. Our friends at Home Field. who I had the great joy of being with at the Rose Bowl just the other week. Tickets punched to Atlanta for them. I'm betting that this is going to be a heavy Crimson crowd at this one. Again, heavy.
Maybe. I mean, it's actually easy for Oregon fans to get to for the first time this postseason. No, it's not. What am I talking about?
Well, you can fly to Atlanta. You can fly to Atlanta from anywhere. I thought you were making a point about Delta's operations in Atlanta.
No, I just, By the way, funny enough, I was talking to some Georgia fans in New Orleans, right? So obviously, if you, I don't know if you could tell on TV, but that was probably about a 60-40, maybe 65-35 Ole Miss crowd. A lot of powder blue in the Superdome last week. And I was talking to some Georgia fans, and Georgia fans have the Alabama thing about them as far as Delta Airlines is concerned. It's frustrating because they're like, Delta jacks up the flights from Atlanta, which where do Georgia fans live? To wherever it is that Georgia goes as far as postseason destinations. So while a lot of Georgia fans obviously drove to New Orleans, that was a concern for them looking forward to the Fiesta Bowl, or the Fiesta Bowl that they thought they were going to play in. So I do wonder if folks coming from Portland, how's Alaska Airlines get the job done from Portland to Atlanta?
Actually, Richard, glad that you would ask that question. It's in Delta's court again if you want to fly nonstop, and I can confirm that at the moment the nonstops from Portland to Atlanta leaving Wednesday back Saturday are going for $1,078 per ticket to $1,200 per ticket. Actually, up to about $1,500 per round trip ticket. It looks like, depending on the time that you would fly back. And I do not believe that is. That's not Comfort Plus. That's Delta Main Classic there for you.
Let me tell you something. You want to know where there also aren't direct flights? LAX to Jacksonville, Florida. That, let me tell you. And I was, honestly, I was rooting for the
people
Chargers.
Like this or hate this? We're becoming the thing we sought to
Doesn't
destroy.
matter.
Talking
Doesn't
about
matter.
airlines.
Doesn't matter. Our show. We make the rules. I was actually rooting for the Chargers to play the Jags because I was figuring that they would then add a direct from LAX to Jacksonville for the game, which they did not.
Yeah. Did I tell you that I did last year? We had a wedding that was overseas. I was flying back from London to New York, and it was only $50 to get Comfort Plus for the one way home. Changed everything. I'd never done it before. I've never flown business, never flown first. Changed everything. It was so good. If you get the chance at a reasonable price point to do the Comfort Plus thing, it's pretty good. I don't think I would have paid more than $100 for it, but $50 to get that kind of leg room, really, really good stuff. If the flight's more than like 6 hours. I did also hear
if it's over 2 hours. First of all, I get typically auto upgraded anyway. Your boy's Platinum Medallion. God, there was a year when I was Diamond Medallion. Whew, that was the year. I look fondly upon that year. But Platinum Medallion, so the upgrades typically come for yours truly as well.
Must be nice. I heard that from out to California last week, Indiana fans were having a very similar problem from Indianapolis. I had some of the people that I saw were on like a 5 a.m. flight home the day after the game because it was the way to spend $800 instead of $1,700 to go from Indy to LAX. So airlines understand the game. They understand the shape of the college football playoff. Another business organization that understands the shape of the college football playoff is Home Field. You should keep your eyes open if you're a fan of a winning team in this game for celebratory merch about winning your bowl game, going to the national championship. I'm told that these have been big boom times for Home Field when people have been buying these shirts after select bowl games. HomeFieldApparel.com is the place to go for the absolute best in the business in collegiate sports apparel. Thank you to Home Field for their support of this podcast. Richard, that means, we didn't ask for picks for this game.
Yeah, you pick the game. I think Indiana's going to win. I think Indiana wins close. I think that Oregon, we talk about it every week, arithmetic of the game, math of the game, the way they manage the game. I think that Oregon is able to use some edgewise advantages. They keep this game close. Hard to beat a team twice, but Indiana is able to get it done at the end. I think Oregon covers, Indiana wins. I think the spread's 4.5.
3.5 right now.
3.5.
Yes. Also Indiana close. So I have an Indiana Ole Miss national championship game. You have an Indiana Miami national championship game.
I do.
Compelling. Explain that to me a couple of years ago.
I also keep forgetting that the national championship game is in Miami, or South Florida, excuse me. That the national championship game is in South Florida.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't factoring that in. The national championship game is going to be in South Florida. You want to talk about ticket prices? We'll get there next week if we get there. But Miami in the Natty against Indiana for the first time ever. Whoo!
I wonder what that crowd split would be. It wouldn't be what you think it would be.
No, it's not going to be. It's not going to be what you think it is.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of tickets for the playoff are corporate, and they're roped for the fans of the schools. But it's not like Miami would be playing a home game, except they would be playing a home game, sort of.
Yeah, it's going to be. If that is the nature of the national championship game, I'm excited. That is going to be a hell of an atmosphere. I will be there next week.
You know who will definitely be there? Modelo, because Modelo is the official beer sponsor of the college football playoff. We have also appreciated having them on as a sponsor of this show all season long. You've seen the commercials. Modelo has been out with the Modelo Recruiter, scouting for full-time fans. And if you're still listening to this podcast at this point in the season, you are approaching the definition of a full-time fan. It is time to finish the drill. Modelo will help you do it. Modelo, the official beer sponsor of the college football playoff. Just 3 college football games left in what I'm calling 2025, because this is still the 2025 season. A good way to tell people's character, by the way, is if they refer to this playoff as the 2026 college football playoff or the 2025 playoff. It's the 2025 college football playoff.
But in the championship game, they put the decal that says the year it's played in, right? So the decal on the uniforms next week will be 2026.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't either.
It's the 2025 season. You're trying to become the champions of the 2025 season.
This was a lot easier when the championship game was like the first or the second.
Even then, it was probably. I feel like there are people who say, for instance, the Vince Young Rose Bowl.
Sure.
If I refer to the Vince Young Rose Bowl,
it's the 2006 Rose Bowl. For God's sakes. I know that it happened January 1st, or January 8th, 2007, or whatever that was. But for God's sakes.
You have it backwards. You're spiritually right. You're just off by a year. It was on January 4th, 2006. However, it's the 2005 Rose Bowl.
Yes, thank you.
That is the point that I would like to make. Bowl games that are played just after the new year just need to get over themselves about the year that they refer to the game as having been played in. Otherwise, there's no difference between us and the rest of the animal kingdom if we don't have order like that. All right, Richard, that's the college football playoff. What are you watching NFL wildcard this weekend?
What do you mean? I'm going to be in person in Jacksonville watching the Jags beat the shit out of the Bills.
Other than the Jags.
I cannot believe the Rams are only a 10-point favorite against the Panthers. Look, man, hard to beat a team twice, which the Panthers did earlier in the season. Like, the Rams are going to beat their ass. I think the Rams are the best team, honestly, in the NFL, at least in the NFC.
I mean, that Seahawks defense that I watched play on Saturday night, I think it was, they just hit you with clubs for hours.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a sick weekend of NFL football. I think the Patriots are going to roll the Chargers. The Chargers are soft. Worried about that one for them. I'm very interested in Eagles-Niners. Niners have been putting it together with duct tape and spittle. I mean, that entire defense hurt. Entire team pretty much is hurt. Don't love the Eagles. I am not a Jalen Hurts guy. And so I think the Niners could be able to pull one. I'm obviously probably most excited, besides the Jaguars game, for Bears and Bears-Packers. That's just going to be awesome that one's in the playoffs. And, buddy, good luck with that defense. Good luck with that defense in Houston, brother. I would like for your Steelers to dispatch them, because I do not want to see the Texans in the AFC Championship game at all.
Yeah. I'm very interested in the NFC South story. That actually is, in my opinion, is partially a college football story. So the Panthers getting in, and the Bucs would have also done this if they would have gotten in. The Panthers getting in made that the 5th NFL team since 2002, when the league realigned, when the Texans came in, to make the playoff at a sub 500 record. 5 teams have done it. 3 of them now are from the NFC South. And one of the others was in the 2020 COVID season with the Washington football team. So that doesn't count because that season was fake. And the only other one was the Marshawn Lynch beast mode Seahawks. That
won a game.
That then won a game and beat the Saints. And I'm glad that they were in the playoffs, because remember that run, it was an iconic play. And for my athletic newsletter on Sunday, I think it was, I actually was asked Jason Kirk about this, dear friend of ours of the Shutdown Fullcast. I was like, so Jason, what do you think's the deal here with the NFC South? And he pointed two things to me. One of which is an NFL story, which is just bad ownership, which, yeah, I mean, all due respect to Arthur Blank for lumping him in here, but like the Benson family disaster. David Tepper is a great hedge fund manager, but has been a disaster as management of an NFL team, though it seems like maybe he's calmed down a little bit this year. Hasn't been in the news. Good for him.
Canales is a good coach, by the way. I think Dave Canales is a good coach.
So there's an ownership thing going on in the NFC South. But there's also that, this is interesting, and I think you could debate it. A lot of the NFC South teams are not the most important football team in their own state. That shouldn't matter in a salary capped league. It shouldn't matter, but maybe it does somehow.
Well, Godfrey will tell you that like the Falcons have long since like pandered to Georgia in a way that he absolutely
Their
hates.
black tops
In
are
fact,
pretty Georgia looking.
Well, it's not just that. In fact, when they wear their throwbacks, you will notice that there is a gold stripe on the red helmet. It's because the Falcons actually try to split the baby, or used to try to split the baby with their like team colors. They try to be both Georgia Tech and Georgia at a certain time. Godfrey will rave about it. If you get not, you don't even have to get a couple drinks in him. He'll just do it on the show the next time we have him on.
So the NFC South is just different. Also, I think maybe most acute, the Saints. I don't think the Saints really like LSU either. I think the Saints somewhat resent that they are not the most popular football team in the state of Louisiana and never will be, no matter what they do.
Sorry you didn't have a state government apparatus behind you. Also, last thought on the NFL playoffs, Broncos are frauds.